Today we're going to be making a t-shirt, so the first thing we need is to find an image. I'm going to jump on the internet and do a quick search. So here's an image that looks pretty cool. Let's open that in a new tab and we can copy the image. Now we're going to jump into Silhouette. So here is Silhouette Studio. Alright, so we're in Silhouette. The first thing we need to do is to set up our page size. So coming into here into page setup, we're going to look for media size, and for printing our t-shirt material we want to be using A4. Okay, after that we're going to turn on registration marks under this panel here. We'll just turn registration marks on. Now we can paste our image. Control V to paste, and I'm going to scale this up so it fits my entire A4 page. We need to tell our cutting machine, our Cameo Pro, which parts we want to cut, and to do that we're going to trace our image. So we're opening the trace panel and selecting the trace area. If we drag a region around our image, we can then turn up our threshold, something like this, and we'll click trace. Now this would actually cut pretty closely to all of these letters. However, our cutting machine isn't perfect, so what I like to do is just set a little bit of an offset. If I can click on my outlines, I can turn on offset, and we'll set this to something like 0.5 and click apply. Now we can remove our old image and we will release compound path and just delete these little bits in the middle. We don't need these. Okay, bringing back our original image, we're just going to line that up something like this. We need to set up our print settings, so we'll click on print, file print, and we'll go to print. We'll be using our Epson ET8550 Inkjet printer, and we'll go to more settings. We need to make sure we're set to landscape, and we're going to choose our paper source rear paper feeder. I'm also going to change my quality to best. And now we can click OK. Now, before we push print, there is actually one more thing we need to change. This is actually set up perfectly to print stickers, but if we want to print t-shirts, we need to reverse this. So if we just select everything, we're going to right click and choose flip horizontally. All right. So now we can print with the settings we looked at before. Paper and put it into the rear feeder slot at the back here. You need to make sure this is the side that's going backwards and this is the side that's facing forwards. Isn't it beautiful? Next part, we're going to need a cutting mat. So find a nice clear surface and we're going to position it right in this corner, just above the sticky stuff. Let's get this loaded into our Cameo Pro. We need to align this edge with these arrows and then simply push this insert button over here. If it's slightly off angle, we can just push this and make sure it's aligned. Now in Silhouette, we're just going to go to the Send tab, and this is going to show us all the things that are going to be cut. At the moment, we're also cutting this rectangle from the image we brought in. We can select that and choose No Cut to turn that off. We're going to choose the paper type. Clicking in this list, we can scroll down until we find Heat Transfer Smooth. This is going to set our blade depth, number of passes, and our force and our speed. You can see we're all ready to go now, but if you can't see this ready message, you will need to click over here and choose the Cameo Pro. Now that we're all ready to go, all we need to do is click on send. And because we've already mirrored it ourselves, we can just send as is. Get the registration marks to make sure that the cutting is aligned to the print. Eject the cutting edge. There we have it. Alright, over here you can see Hop It. This is our heat press. When you find this heat press, it's probably going to look like this. You can see we've got a little blocker in the back here. Just ask one of our friendly staff to remove that, and they will bring over a jug board. You can flick this machine on like so. See, we're going to be using a iron-on transfer paper. We need to make sure that the cotton we're using is at least 50% and that it will be heat resistant. For this shirt, we're going to be using a light color, like this one here. And we're going to set the temperature of this heat press between 180 to 200 degrees. We can set the temperature simply by pushing the mode button and then pushing plus to increase it to 180 degrees. I'm going to go to 190 because that's just between the two settings that it recommends. We're also going to set the timer. Once again, we'll change this to 50. Finally, by pushing mode once again, you can see the current temperature. We need to wait until that is 190 before we can use this heat press. While we're waiting for the heat press, we can prepare our surface. So that means just making sure our t-shirt is nice and flat and figuring out exactly where we want our logo to be. Through the magic of our Auaha technology, we've traveled through time to a point where this machine is now at the right temperature, 190 degrees. So that means we can take our t-shirt, plop it down on here, being careful not to touch this surface. We want to keep this nice and flat, making sure our entire design is within this rectangle. You can see the timer counting down. This machine beeps at you when it's finished, which is nice because sometimes you walk away, but here it goes, beep, and we just lift it up strong and remove our t-shirt. We're now ready to see if it all worked. Simply find a corner and peel it away. Pretty good.